Xiao Yu had a great talent for shooting, but 5 years ago, an accident left her blind. I had just been transported to this world with a mission to win over Shen Huai and make her fall in love with me before I could return home. I spent 5 years helping her emerge from darkness and successfully won her heart. After completing the mission, I chose to stay with her and used all my points to restore her sight. However, after winning the shooting championship, the first thing she did was abandon me. My 5 years of dedication became a joke. When the system appeared again, I requested to leave this world. Host, insufficient points to leave the world. Then take back her eyes. I was stopped at the door of Xiao Yu's gold medal celebration banquet. Brother Huai, Sister Qiao really isn't here. Her friend Su Yun lowered her head, unable to look at me. Even she knew how ridiculous her lie was. I laughed coldly and said, the only reason you can be by Xiao Yu's side now is because I gave you a chance. Back then, when Su Yun was beaten up for cheating in a casino and became homeless, I was the one who brought her to Xiao Yu. She was quite capable, and soon became a loyal watchdog by Xiao Yu's side. After a moment of silence, Su Yun stepped aside to make way. Sister Qiao is in the Furong chamber on the second floor. I stood at the entrance of the private room, listening to the voices coming from inside. Sister Qiao winning our country's first shooting championship this time means her career will only continue to soar. Don't forget about us brothers and sisters when that time comes. Under everyone's continuous flattery, Xiao Yu spoke cheerfully. Stay low-key. Let's keep it low-key. Low-key? She was anything but low-key. In just 5 years, she went from being an unknown newcomer to winning a gold medal, becoming a rising star in the sports world. Besides rigorous training, the necessary courage and tactics must have played their part. Through the door gap, I could see a thin man sitting next to Xiao Yu. At that moment, she was whispering close to the young man's ear, their bodies intimately close, creating an extremely ambiguous atmosphere. Inside, people were exchanging drinks and engaged in various conversations. Someone suddenly said, Sister Qiao, why wasn't Brother Huai invited to this celebration? Do you two have other plans at home? Is Brother Huai planning to propose to you? Suddenly, the entire private room fell silent. Shen Huai was still holding that man, who exhaled a puff of smoke, the smoke swirling around, making his expression unclear. The person scratched his head. Sister Qiao, I'm sorry, I've had too much to drink, just pretend you didn't hear that. Xiao Yu sneered. You all know how things are between Shen Huai and me. Yes, we know Brother Huai treats you extremely well. Before the person could finish speaking, Yu interrupted directly. You all know how I was before, half alive and half dead, and it was he who saved me. I'm grateful to him, but now I'm more interested in the person next to me. After saying that, she didn't forget to give that man a kiss. That pilgrimage 5 years ago gave her light back in her life. Now it made her believe she had a better life, and even made her feel she was always destined for greatness. Also, Shen Huai witnessed me at my most miserable state. Now whenever I see him, I can't help but remember how weak and useless I was back then, which makes me sick. Xiao Yu said while drinking, her tone mixed with disgust towards me. When I pushed open the door, the room fell silent instantly, and her teammates looked at me awkwardly. I looked at Xiao Yu expressionlessly. At this moment, her hand was still around that man's waist. Seeing me come in, she casually removed it. She looked at me and said, Why are you here? I didn't invite you because everyone here is a shooting athlete. You don't understand anything about it. You wouldn't fit in with us even if you came. No need to explain. I'm here to tell you that we should break up. I said calmly. Impatience appeared on Joy's face as she said, Don't be unreasonable. Today is my celebration party. Do you really want to make everyone unhappy? I heard everything you just said. Since you despise me so much, let's break up. I spoke coldly. Joy looked at me in disbelief. Can you really bear to leave me? Besides, didn't you want me to win the championship? Do you know what getting a gold medal means? I was just joking earlier. You don't need to take it so seriously. I'm serious. Let's break up. You deserve better. I said as I turned and walked toward the main door. Joy's voice, tinged with anger, came from behind. Shen Huai, are you really breaking up with me? After all these years together, how can you just let go so easily? I'll just take this as you speaking out of anger. With a bang, I shut the door. The private room fell silent for a few seconds, and her teammates came forward one after another to persuade her to chase after me. Perhaps she truly despised me, or maybe it was about saving face. Then I heard Xiao Yu sneer and say carelessly, He loves me so desperately that he would die for me. He's just throwing a little tantrum. I'm a champion now, he definitely won't leave. Didn't he serve me so well back then just for this moment? Only a fool would leave. I bet if I ignore him for a few days, he'll come running back begging for reconciliation. Sister Qiao, you really know how to handle men. The girl beside her flattered along. Xiao Yu smiled with contempt. You can't spoil men. Just leave them alone for a few days, and they'll behave. I took a deep breath. It was already late autumn. Standing on the street, Feeling the cold wind blowing against my face, my heart ached as I silently cow. Let out. System, I want to go home. A familiar mechanical electronic voice entered my mind. Host, insufficient points detected. I was momentarily dazed. That's right. I had used all my points to get new eyes for Xiaoyu. When I first met Xiaoyu, she was very negative, cold, and her obsession made her seem like a villainous character. I almost wanted to give up on this mission. However, when I saw her stubbornly refusing everyone's help, falling alone by the bathtub, with her angrily thrown belongings scattered everywhere, curled up in a corner, silently crying like an injured hedgehog. From that moment on, I felt her fear and loneliness, and became more dedicated to approaching and protecting her. I stayed by her side for 5 years like this. I integrated myself into her life, letting her get used to me, and gradually I discovered that we had become inseparable. After all, true feelings were invested in these 5 years. When the system congratulated me on my successful pursuit and asked whether to leave, looking at this pitiful yet lovable girl, I chose to stay. At the same time, I exchanged my task points with the system for a surprise. That was to give Xiaoyu a pair of perfectly restored eyes. I remember that day. I took her to the temple to worship Buddha, but she was pessimistic, saying Buddha wouldn't help her. I told her that sincere prayers would be answered, and asked Buddha to bless her with restored sight. Xiaoyu made a wish with a doubtful heart, while I secretly used all my system points to restore her vision. When she took off her glasses, she hugged me excitedly. That evening, she even hand-wove a red string bracelet for me. The slightly clumsy girl carefully put the red string bracelet on my wrist, and at that moment, her cheeks instantly blushed. She promised me earnestly that I would be part of her future, she would do her best to be good to me, and make every day of my life filled with happiness. Joy began to display her talents in her field of expertise. Her perfectly intact eyes finally allowed her to shine and stand out among the crowd. However, as she devoted more time to training, I can't remember how long it's been since we last contacted or met. I only remember that day, on a rare day off, I found a men's jacket that wasn't mine among her discarded clothes. I just calmly asked, "This jacket doesn't seem to be mine?" She impatiently replied that it belonged to her coach, saying she took it by mistake. She also said that since I stay at home all day, I tend to overthink things, and suggested I should go out more often. A simple question from me made her so impatient. Looking at her, I couldn't help but think of that insecure and extreme girl from before. That girl who used to blush at my every word. Now she shows impatience at a single question from me. Some things just can't go back to how they were in that moment. Back in my apartment, lying on the bed and staring at the ceiling, I asked the system, would it be enough points if I exchanged Xiaoyu's eyes? Yes, host. However, if you return this way, your body will suffer unpredictable damage. Do you still want to go back? I nodded without hesitation. Do it. All right, host. Retrieving Xiaoyu's eyes and converting them into points for your return will take 3 days. During these 3 days, you can still choose to stay. I let out a heavy sigh of relief. 3 days, just 3 more days, and everything would be over. Return countdown, day 3. I threw everything related to me in the house into garbage bags. Our photos together, couple toothbrushes, couple mugs, and the couple photo shoot we took in the bedroom. In the photos, Xiaoyu and I were wearing matching outfits. She was happily leaning against my shoulder, wearing sunglasses over her eyes. At that time, Xiaoyu hadn't recovered yet, but she still insisted on taking professional photos with me. She said if she really got better, she would marry me and be the happiest bride. In the photos, we were smiling, and the camera captured our smiles, but it didn't capture happiness or Xiaoyu's heart. I swung the hammer, smashing the photos to pieces, then threw them into a cardboard box and disposed of them. In the bedside drawer, there was a jewelry box containing a bracelet Xiaoyu made for me. I cut the bracelet and put it back. By the time I finished packing my things, it was already 10 o'clock at night. Opening WeChat, I saw her Moments post, where her friends were giving her gifts and congratulations. And there was a photo of her holding the gold medal with that man. They looked like a perfect couple, so affectionate with each other. The caption read, "Thank you for being there. Your support led me to victory." Looking at this Moments post, I found it utterly ridiculous. In all those years with Xiaoyu, she never let me appear in her moments. Yet now she posted photos of herself with another man. Even my contributions were completely denied by her. Never mind, I'm about to leave this world and start a whole new life anyway. Second day of the countdown to return. Around 1 a.m., I received a friend request on WeChat. After accepting it, they sent me a video. It showed a drunk Xiaoyu being carried into a room by that man, with Su Yun following. She lay on the bed, quite intoxicated and barely conscious. Brother Huai, sorry about this. Yaya had too much to drink. She was having fun today, and we stayed out late, so she's sleeping at my place. Don't worry, this hotel belongs to my family. She'll be safe here. They sent me this message. I checked their Moments page, which was full of videos of them attending various project developments and meetings. His name is Yi Tian, the young master of the Yi Group and their only heir. Xiao Yubei. Ing with him. It seems she was attracted to his family background. Looking at his latest update, it was a photo of him and Xiao Yu smiling at the camera arm in arm, with her gold medal around his neck. That gold medal which I had spent years supporting Xiao Yu with all my might to help her win. I didn't reply to him, put down my phone, and went to sleep. Xiao Yu only came back at noon to change clothes, saying she would continue training to ensure winning the championship next year too. Looking at the somewhat empty wardrobe, she frowned and said, "Where are your clothes? Are you playing the runaway game? Don't bother yourself about it," I said coldly. Xiao Yu chuckled and looked at me, with mockery in her eyes. "Are you really angry? It's just a small matter. Why are you taking it so seriously? I am now the national champion with a net worth of millions. You won't bear to leave me. You'd better know your limits. If you apologize to me, I might forgive your jealousy. Also, I've already bought a house outside. I won't be staying in this shabby house anymore," Xiao Yu said, giving me a cold glance. Seeing that I remained silent, she thought I was considering how to apologize. She sneered and said the offer won't last, then pushed the door open and left. She didn't mention a single word about not coming home at night, as if everything she did was perfectly justified. In the afternoon, Yi Tian sent me a message asking to meet. By the lake in the park, Yi Tian wore high-end custom clothing and an expensive watch, exuding an air of nobility in his every move. He looked at me arrogantly and said, "What will it take for you to leave Xiao Yu? I think you should know your place. You're not worthy of her anymore. Xiao Yu is now a national champion. With me by her side, I can help her reach even greater heights. You're just an ordinary person. You can't give her any support. If you truly love her, you should learn to let go and let her soar more freely. If she can treat me like this, how can you guarantee she won't do the same to you in the future?" I looked at her quietly. Yi Tian sneered, "I'm different from you. I have money and family background. Xiao Yu choosing me is the right decision. In today's society, what good is your few years of relationship? Want to bet I can get her here with just one phone call? Then we'll see who she chooses between us." Yi Tian said with absolute confidence as he called Xin Huai. At this time, Xiao Yu would usually be training. In the past, if I called her during this time, she would either hang up or not answer at all. Unexpectedly, Yi Tian's call was answered within seconds, and he gave me a provocative smile. Shortly after, Xiao Yu rushed over in her training clothes. Just as she was about to reach us, Yi Tian suddenly let out a painful cry, lost his balance, and fell heavily into the greenery beside the sidewalk. Yi Tian, Xiao Yu behind us exclaimed in shock and rushed forward to help him up. Yi Tian's face was pale, his clothes disheveled from the fall, unexpectedly revealing his muscular physique. He trembled as he nestled close to Xin Huai. "Don't blame Brother Huai. I just tripped by accident." "Xin Huai, how could you? I never thought you would be such a scheming person. Yi Tian is physically weak. If anything serious happened from this fall, the Yi Corporation won't let this slide." I coldly watched this scene, knowing full well that Yi Tian had fallen deliberately. He had precisely calculated the distance Xiao Yu would need to rush forward and support him. Xiao Yu looked at his pale face with deep concern, then turned to me and angrily shouted, "Apologize to Yi Tian right now." "I did nothing wrong. Why should I apologize? He fell in by himself." I sneered. But Xiao Yu said, "You clearly pushed him in. How could someone as big as Tian fall in by himself? You've really disappointed me. Xin Huai, I always thought you were just a bit jealous, but I never expected you to be such a vicious person. You can check the surveillance cameras if you don't believe me." I said. Xiao Yu glared at me fiercely. No need to explain anymore. "I'm taking Yi Tian to the hospital. You better watch yourself." After saying that, Xiao Yu helped Yi Tian into a taxi and headed toward the hospital. Before they left, Yi Tian gave me a smug smile. "Go ahead and smile. Let's see if you can still smile in a few days." While walking back through the alley, I received a WeChat message. It was a video sent by Yi Tian. Just as I was about to open it, suddenly, a figure rushed out from the shadows, moving so fast I barely had time to react. "Give me your phone." The man's voice was deep and forceful, carrying an undeniable threat. My heart jumped, and I gripped the phone tightly. Seeing this, a flash of anger crossed the man's face as he prepared to take it by force. I resisted with all my might, but in the struggle, the man's knife still managed to cut a large gash in my arm. A sharp pain shot through me, and blood instantly stained my sleeve red. I couldn't help crying out. Upon seeing me bleeding, the man hurriedly fled. The intense pain made me instinctively want to call Joy. But when I picked up the phone, I saw Joy carefully peeling an apple for Yi Tian, feeding him, blow-drying his hair, and even cutting his toenails, taking care of him in every possible way. It reminded me of when I used to take care of Joy. I had no experience in taking care of people, let alone someone like Xiao Yu, such a delicate girl who was blind and couldn't see anything. At first, she couldn't get used to the white cane and could only reach out to fumble around blindly. Like a nanny, I helped her cut her nails, wash her hair, and bathe. Back then, she was very reluctant to go out, so for her sake, I specially learned how to cut hair. I insisted on reading books to her every night and giving her eye massages, just to help ease her emotional breakdowns that came from the devastating impact of losing her sight. I remember once when I was sick with a fever, I asked her to make some millet porridge following the steps I taught her, but she refused and said to just order takeout instead. Now, she's voluntarily learning to cook for Yi Tian. At this moment, that familiar name, Xiao Yu, flashed on my phone screen. I was somewhat surprised and expectant that she was calling. It seemed she still cared about our relationship. My trembling fingers pressed down, wanting to ask Xiao Yu to accompany me to the hospital. However, on the other end of the phone, Xiao Yu's voice was urgent and cold. Shen Huai, come to the hospital right now and apologize to Yi Tian. He's got a fever from shock and refuses to take medicine. He won't take it until you apologize. Hurry up. I looked at my bleeding arm, opened my mouth, but couldn't utter a single word of what I wanted to say. I felt sorrowful for my own submissiveness in this relationship, and even more for that sacrificed self. Xiao Yu was still making demands on the other end of the phone, but I didn't want to listen anymore and hung up directly. Indeed, what am I still hoping for? In this relationship, she had long forgotten her initial promises, and the girl in her heart had become completely unrecognizable. I was both heartbroken by her change of heart and frustrated by my own softness. Such a person really isn't worth my lingering attachment. At this moment, the system emitted an electronic sound. Host, after midnight tonight, there will be only 1 day left. You can leave this world. After leaving, Xiao Yu's eyes will be taken back. Please confirm again. Do you want to leave? Confirmed. I struggled to stand up and return to my own small room. This is the place in this world that has given me warmth. On the last day, I just want to stay here. There's no need to go to the hospital anymore. I always thought that one person's love could transform another person, but now I understand that some people are simply incapable of love. She doesn't need your love at all. She just needs you. The more you give and try to please her, the less she cares about you. When interests outweigh love, Xiao Yu chose interests without hesitation. I never thought she truly loved Yi Tian, but his family background made her desperate to please him. And I, who had seen her at her lowest and accompanied her through hard times, am now being ruthlessly and unhesitatingly abandoned by her. I taught her how to love, yet she gave that love to someone else. The final day of the countdown. Today is my birthday, and also the day I'm about to leave. Since taking Yi Tian to the hospital, Xiao Yu hasn't come back or sent any messages. She's probably still waiting for me to try to win her favor. I ordered a small cake, planning to put a final period on my existence in this world. In the evening, Yi Tian sent me another video, a photo of Xiao Yu brushing her teeth wrapped in a towel. 2 people, obviously in a hotel. He typed, "You lost our bet." He also said, "The unloved one is the real third wheel." Though they were just words, I could easily sense his smugness through them. I called Xiao Yu, asking if she could come back once. I wanted to return the bracelet she once gave me, even though I had already cut it. The call connected, and from the other end came the creaking sounds of a bed, along with Yi Tian's unspeakable noises. "You made Yi Tian get shocked and fevered, yet you have the nerve to ask me to go back? I called you to apologize, but you hung up on me. Get lost, don't bother me." Xiao Yu's voice was filled with anger, and she immediately hung up the phone. I lit the birthday candles and made a birthday wish. After the candles burned out, the clock struck 12. My whole body started floating, drawn into a blinding white light. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in my own home. Looking at the room that felt both familiar and strange, my eyes welled up with tears. I had been transported there for 5 whole years, 5 years of my life wasted. Fortunately, when I left, time in this space would freeze, and I could return to normal life. I will forget Xiao Yu, forget all the pain, and start anew. The system will reclaim Xiao Yu's eyes within 3 days after I leave. The system will also show me real-time footage of what's happening with Xiao Yu. Though it doesn't mean much anymore, I still want to see what becomes of her after I'm gone. The next afternoon, Xiao Yu finally got up from Yi Tian's bed. She needed to go back to get her ID card to handle the house purchase procedures. Now that she was a champion, how could she still live in such a small and shabby house? Moreover, there were many unpleasant memories inside. She wished all those embarrassing memories could be buried in that house, including the man who had seen her at her worst. Xiao Yu rubbed her eyes, feeling sore and weak. Perhaps it was because she was too tired last night, Xiao Yu thought, as she placed a kiss on the sleeping Yi Tian's forehead. If Shen Huai behaved well, she wouldn't mind having him as her lover. As for husband, forget it. Only young masters like Yi Tian were worthy of being her husband. When Xiao Yu returned to the apartment, she found the front door unlocked. In the living room, a small cake sat quietly on the table, with a burnt-out candle on top. Xiao Yu frowned slightly. changed out of her dirty clothes, and tossed them on the sofa. Shenhui, take my dirty clothes and wash them, and pack my luggage too. I'm moving to the new place. You can stay here. I'll pay the rent for you. Xiaoyu called out towards the room. There was no response. The whole house was completely silent. Xiaoyu grew impatient. She noticed Shenhuai's phone left on the sofa. Looking into the bedroom, Shenhuai's ID card and some clothes were still there. Where could he have gone? Could he have gone grocery shopping? Xiaoyu waited for a while, but no one returned. She suddenly noticed a piece of paper pressed under the cake. There was a line written in very graceful handwriting. It was from Shenhuai. I'm leaving. I wish you happiness. What a boring trick. Xiaoyu said as she threw the crumpled paper into the trash bin, then got up and violently smashed the cake on the floor. She slammed the door and left, not returning until the next day. Her eyes were getting increasingly sore and uncomfortable, similar to how they felt when she was previously blind. She began to feel inexplicably panic-stricken. Shenhuai, get me the eye drops. My eyes are bothering me. Xiaoyu shouted. Still, there was no response. Xiaoyu felt increasingly uneasy, sensing that Shenhuai might have really left. She called Shenhuai's number countless times, but his phone was at home. Besides that, Xiaoyu also contacted Su Yun and others who knew Shenhuai. The responses were all the same. No one knew where he had gone. Even after reporting to the police, they couldn't find Shenhuai, and there was no trace of his information even in the public security system. It was as if Shenhuai had vanished into thin air. Xiaoyu grew increasingly anxious, turning the house upside down in search of any clues about Shenhuai. She found nothing. Where did you go? Xiaoyu's eyes were red as she sat on the floor disheveled, pulling at her hair. A ringtone suddenly sounded. Xiaoyu immediately got up and grabbed the phone on the sofa. It was from Shenhuai. However, just as she answered, Yi Tian's smug voice came through from the other end. Brother Huai, are you still hung up on Xiaoyu? The one who isn't loved is the third wheel. I suggest you disappear as soon as possible. See this? These are all proof of my loving relationship with Xiaoyu. She said more than once that seeing you makes her sick, and that her husband would never be a mediocre worker like you. On WeChat, Yi Tian sent several intimate photos showing him and Xiaoyu kissing. Xiaoyu's eyes widened as she almost roared. What did you do to Shenhuai? Shenhuai? I didn't do anything. Yi Tian's voice became flustered. So during the times she couldn't see, this was how Yi Tian had been bullying her Shenhuai? Xiaoyu angrily hung up the phone. With a sweep of her arm, she knocked all the items on the coffee table onto the floor, scattering them everywhere with a clatter. Looking at the cake she had thrown on the floor, then glancing at the calendar, Xiaoyu's eyes widened in shock. That day was Shenhuai's birthday. What have I done? What have I done? Shenhuai, where have you gone? How could you possibly bear to leave me? Xiaoyu sat painfully on the floor, fiercely gripping her hair with both hands. Her eyes felt increasingly sore and her vision was becoming blurry. She hadn't thought much of it, assuming it was just high eye pressure from her recent lack of rest. Those moments spent with Shenhuai came crashing into her mind like raindrops, frantically bombarding her thoughts. Impossible. Impossible. You won't leave. You love me so much. How could you bear to leave? I'm a champion now. You didn't leave even when I was at my lowest. How could you leave now? Come back. Xiaoyu screamed hysterically. Her gaze suddenly fell on the spoiled cake, and she frantically pounced on it, grabbing handfuls and stuffing them into her mouth. After I finish this cake, you'll come back. Xiaoyu ate the cake bite by bite. Those beautiful memories of Shenhuai taking care of her without complaint, selling his house to pay for her medical treatment, flooded into her mind, making her heart ache as if it were being torn apart. What on earth had she done? Shenhuai, I was wrong. Xiaoyu knelt on the ground in agony, picking up Shenhuai's phone to look through his chat history with Yi Tian. Yi Tian's insults and those favored taunts hurt her even more. After seeing this, Xiaoyu stood up, determined to uncover the truth about what happened on the sidewalk that day. When the surveillance footage was retrieved, Xiaoyu was stunned. Everything had been staged by Yi Tian, yet she had stood unwaveringly by his side, even insulting Shenhuai and forcing her to apologize to Yi Tian. Xiaoyu's hands were trembling. She knocked on Yi Tian's door, and he, wearing pajamas, embraced her. Baby, you finally came back. Are you ready to marry me? Yi Tian asked flirtatiously. Xiaoyu placed the surveillance footage she had copied in front of him and asked coldly. You falsely accused him of pushing you into the landscaping. Yi Tian's expression froze instantly, then he sneered. So what? You're tired of him anyway. I heard Shenhuai has disappeared. Isn't that perfect? Let's get married. I can take your career to the next level. Bastard. Xiaoyu suddenly raised her hand and slapped Yi Tian hard across the face. Yi Tian clutched his face violently, his eyes wide with fury as he roared. You dare to hit me? You must be tired of living. Xiaoyu raised her hand to slap him again, but Yi Tian grabbed it. I never thought you could be so vicious, framing Shen Huai and spreading so many harmful words about him. I was so wrong about you, Da. So what? You're the one who hurt him the most. Who do you think you are? You were the one who said you felt sick just looking at him. You're the most vicious one, taking advantage of his feelings for you to hurt him recklessly. Now you're here PR. Attending to care. Yi Tian glared at Xiao Yu intently. Xiao Yu was stunned. She had indeed said those words. Shen Huai had seen her at her weakest and most pathetic state, and whenever she saw him, she was reminded of how disgraceful she once was. When Shen Huai said he wanted to break up, she thought he was just saying it out of anger. After all, he loved her so much. Xiao Yu suddenly stumbled backward 2 steps and collapsed to the ground, her tears falling in large drops onto the floor. Shen Huai, I'm so sorry, I was wrong. Please come back, Da. Xiao Yu was filled with regret. She had lost the person who loved her the most. Stop crying. I'll stay with you, said Yi Tian. Xiao Yu looked up at her, her mind filled with memories of how she had treated Shen Huai lately. She didn't dare to think about how much pain Shen Huai must have felt during those nights when she didn't come home. No, I must find him. Xiao Yu got up and stumbled out. The next moment, her eyes suddenly rolled back and she collapsed to the ground. When she regained consciousness, Xiao Yu was already in the hospital. Su Yun and Yi Tian were by her side, both looking at her with concern. Sister Qiao, you're finally awake. You've been unconscious for a day and night. We were so worried. Su Yun said anxiously. Where is Shen Huai? Xiao Yu's voice was extremely hoarse. Yi Tian said, he's given up on you, he's gone. You were the one who said you felt sick just looking at him. You were the one who forced him to leave. As it happens, you're still of some use to our family, so you might as well come with me, Da. Why aren't the lights on? It's so dark, where are you two? Xiao Yu suddenly reached out, groping aimlessly around. Su Yun and Yi Tian exchanged a glance, both with uneasy expressions. Sister Qiao, the lights are on. We're right by your bed, Su Yun said softly. Xiao Yu sat up in bed, her voice trembling. Don't lie to me. You haven't turned on the lights, have you? Turn them on. Quickly turn on the lights. Why can't I see anything? She fell to the ground with a thud, and that feeling of despair from 5 years ago overwhelmed her entire body. You haven't gone blind again, have you? Yi Tian blurted out. Xiao Yu lay awkwardly on the floor, reaching out to feel around. No, it's impossible. Call a doctor. Call a doctor. She screamed like a madwoman in the hospital room. The doctors quickly arranged a series of examinations for her, and the final result was that she was blind, with no possibility of recovery. It was a medical miracle when Miss Qiao's eyesight recovered before. How did she suddenly go blind again? The doctor sighed and walked away. Xiao Yu's heart sank to the bottom, her whole body trembling, terribly cold. Yi Tian sat there expressionlessly. Xiao Yu raised her hands, grasping around, trembling and pleading. Where are you? Shen Huai? Yi Tian, you'll take care of him. Right. As she spoke, her hand grabbed Yi Tian's hand beside her. Yi Tian stood up, violently shook her off, and sneered. How could that be possible? As the young master of the Yi family, how could I take care of a blind person like you? Now that you're blind, you're of no use to my family anymore. I originally thought you were decent looking and a rising star in sports. Marrying you would have been beneficial to the Yi family. Now, you're no different from useless trash. Don't go, Yi Tian, don't leave me. Xiao Yu said frantically. Yi Tian walked towards the door and said coldly. Sorry, I'm not that fool, Shen Huai. I won't entrust my happiness to a useless person. Besides, who knows if you'll treat me the same way you treated Shen Huai once your sight recovers. After saying that, Yi Tian opened the door and left without looking back. The hospital room fell silent. Su Yun stammered beside her. Sister Qiao, the doctor said there's no chance your eyes will recover, and the coach has already removed you from the team. Su Yun, please help me withdraw all my money for my continued treatment, will you? I'm begging you. Xiao Yu said anxiously. Then tell me your password. Xiao Yu told Su Yun her password, and Su Yun left with her card containing all the money Xiao Yu had earned from competitions and gold medals over the years. Unfortunately, people only stayed close to her because of personal gain. After Su Yun left, she never came back. Unable to afford hospitalization and with no hope of recovering her eyesight, Xiao Yu could only feel her way out of the hospital with a white cane. Shen Huai, I was wrong. Please come back. Xiao Yu collapsed on the street, and among the crowds passing by, not a single person reached out to help her. Only now did she realize how selflessly Shen Huai had loved her, but everything was too late. This world is like a Mobius strip, with neither beginning nor end. Any point could be the start, and any point could be the end. Just like drawing a line casually, it could be either the beginning or the end, much like the cycle of cause and effect. Everything had returned to 5 years ago, but this time, there was no Shen Huai who would quietly accompany her. When Xiao Yu was at her peak, she never thought that such moments of glory wouldn't last forever. When she decided to become an ungrateful and heartless woman who betrays those who helped her, all happiness and glory had silently begun their countdown. Xiao Yu had always thought she was heaven's favorite child, but in fact, everything was because of love, which comes and goes. She thought of 5 years ago, Shen Huai's young face, his gentle voice, always silently encouraging her, always quietly taking care of her. Shen Huai's young face was filled with innocence about love. He knew how to love someone, but never knew that loving the wrong person would be an immense disaster. Xiao Yu suddenly understood that her eyes were getting better because of Shen Huai. Although she couldn't understand the principle behind it, everything improved because of him. It had been more than a week since returning to the normal world. My world no longer revolves around Xiao Yu, and I don't need to carefully please her or take care of her sensitive emotions anymore. I felt nothing about her tragic fate after I left. When I gave her my sincere heart, she betrayed me. This was the price she deserved to pay. Half a month later, the system informed me that Joy had gone insane. She wandered aimlessly on the streets, grabbing random people and telling them she was a shooting champion. People looked at her, blind in both eyes, and found her ridiculous. I won't feel sorry for her. People only realize how precious something is after they've lost it. Unfortunately, nothing can start over from the beginning. I've begun my new life too, just like what the navigation always says.